Two guys in a mic.
Being recorded.
We are being recorded. Look who it is. Kid Kelly's here. How are you, my friend?
I feel good. How about you?
Feel good? Feel good?
Say hello to my little friend.
Oh, look at that.
Nice.
All right.
That's how we get the chicks. You know, in top 40 radio at my age, you need a dog.
That's your hook?
It's my hook.
That's your hook.
Pretty sad hook.
We are here with legendary Kid Kelly, world famous DJ, or as Scott Shannon, who we both work for, radio pronunciator. Kid is famous for probably working at the biggest and best ever top 40 in America, Z100, for many, many years. How many times were you there?
I kind of lost track. I somewhere between 4 and 6. I could do the math now if you want, but it'll be boring to you.
Yeah, but Kid came there in late 80s into the 90s. Scott Shannon called him when he was working in Buffalo. He didn't think Scott was on the phone, hung the phone up on Scott, and then came to New York. Well, you tell the story.
He asked my legal name. Is it Patrick? I'm like, I'm sorry, who's this, please? Is it Patrick? I'm like, I'm sorry, who's this, please? Is it Patrick? I'm like, who's this? They didn't answer. Click. Love Super Shan. Without Super Shan, there'd be no Kid Kelly. So props to Super Shan.
Yeah, good dude.
Great dude.
So
and a brilliant mind.
What was that?
And a brilliant mind, with radio and stuff. I learned so much from him.
As I did from you and him. But give us a rundown on your career for the folks that may not exactly who tune into this wonderful podcast know.
I don't even know how to express that. I will say that, before the internet, radio was what I consider to be everything that social media is today. You find out stuff first. It's right. There's influencers. There are people that you lean into. That's gone from all types of what I would call FM radio today, and even some places that don't have FM attached to them. That's the mindset. They basically stripped the radio station of its essence, its soul, if you will, and then other social media platforms and took the layers that belonged to the hosts now, the DJs then, or the head DJs, or as the pronouncicators, as you or Super Shan would say. That's Scott Shannon's nighttime name. At some point a long time ago, and they stripped the essence of the hosts, the DJs out, and just handed it away. And then they wondered what happened to the radio industry. Well, if you don't allow your hosts, if you don't allow your DJs to be who they are, then what do you expect? When a listener doesn't know that corporate America top down is telling the hosts what not to say and what to say, which doesn't really make a lot of connective sense most of the time because it's usually corporate gibberish mumbo jumbo. Rizzo, you following?
I'm trying to figure out who the geniuses were that came up with this idea. So they basically shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah, I think
the industry. So these are guys that are making a lot of money running these big corporations, and let's ruin our business because we know better than you.
We know better than the soldiers on the front line.
Yeah.
And the soldiers on the front line, they're soldiers. Hey, how was it today outside? Well, we drove by and we used to get applause, and now we get the finger. I think something's wrong. Don't tell me something's wrong. Well, I just did, because this is what the public just told me, and I'm just passing it on to you since you're the head mixologist. This stuff been happening for a long time, decades. When you pull out the soul and the heart of the on-air entertainers, if that's what they should be, either entertainers, informers. Here's the place for information now. Here's the place when you want to hear about new stuff. Here's the place when you not just new stuff, new lifestyle stuff, new music stuff. All these things that the then DJ between the songs used to do has now been pulled away, and they're fed some corporate gibberish about this.com and that.com and stuff that literally makes no sense to people. We dealt with a lot of that at Satellite. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Jim, but I certainly did. And I
Yep.
did my best to clean up the gibberish, and it was ridiculously bad. And when I'd share, this is really bad, I get looked at like as if I was being a problem. I'm like trying to say, listen, I've seen people, I've watched their faces listening to this giant paragraph that you are handing to all the hosts here that don't understand it because you're not really doing a good job explaining it in the first place. But okay. And then it gets passed around to 5 different departments because they all have to weigh in. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's 25 emails for a host in a different state to try and decipher. They can't figure it out. So then they read the whole paragraph in between 2 songs. And it sounds ridiculously disconnected. And that's the way it is now, sadly, in the corporate world. Call them, the 3 FM companies and the satellite company, that they all follow each other, but nobody's has the courage to blaze real trails. Nobody has the courage to manage upward and say, this sucks.
You got to fix this.
Nobody has the courage to say, this isn't going to work. And when they say, you've got to be more accepting, your response could be, I am very accepting. See, I've done this in the field 4 other times. It doesn't work. They need to be more accepting. But you get a lot of people here that want to play football, that were never on a field, that are then going to tell Tom Brady how to throw the ball.
Right.
Exactly.
The whole
Back it
dichotomy
up
of
for a
it.
minute.
Say again,
Jim,
Rizzo?
I was
I
going to say
wanted
the whole
just to know-
dichotomy of it. Sorry, Mark. The whole dichotomy of it is like when satellite, when I got there before, a few years before Kid, was like, let's not be as radio was. We don't have commercials. We can play extra. We can discover new music. We can do some extra, take some chances, do some special stuff. But then, it became, I guess it's a monster to manage, but what happened was it became like one size fits all. So you're going to treat the top 40 like you wanted to treat deep tracks like you do a top 40. I mean, when I first got to Sirius, Deep Tracks was playing hit records. I'm like, this is stupid. It's a station called Deep Tracks. I shouldn't hear a hit on this radio station.
You shouldn't know anything about it coming
Right.
from your previous world.
Right. But I'm hearing Led Zeppelin, Stairway to Heaven. Sorry, that's a hit. So that whole do this, but do it this way, completely opposite. That's the frustration that builds. So go ahead. Sorry, Mark, I cut you off.
Well, what I wanted to do, being I'm a big fan of Kid Kelly, I just want to know, let's get back to the beginning, kid. So you go to school, you go to college, you decide I want to be in radio. I listen to the radio. I think this is what I want to do. And you get that great Kid Kelly voice. And then you come up with a name and say, I'm Kid Kelly. That's the history of Kid Kelly I want to know about. How did it all start for you?
First of all, you look younger, and I haven't seen you in 10 years.
You look good too. Look at
Jim, you
you
look
with the
great, by the way,
glasses.
as well, Jim.
Thank you.
Well, it's Florida. You have to have them.
I'm in
Yes.
Florida too. I know.
Oh, what part?
Where I'm about 2 hours from Jim. I'm in Sarasota.
Okay,
Lakewood
I'm in
Ranch.
the Palm Beach area.
My daughter
Um,
lives in Palm Beach Gardens. How far is
Your
that
daughter?
from
Did
you?
you say your daughter?
Yeah. I was able to reproduce 3 times.
Well, when you visit your daughter, give me a holler if you'd like.
How far are you from like PGA Boulevard and all that stuff?
Very close.
Okay, next time I was there
Extremely
Saturday.
close.
I
Actually,
could have
there are
come
many
over for
other
coffee.
former disc jockeys in this area. I don't want to mention who they are because I'm not going to. That's their secret or not. But there are at least 3 other way bigger fish that you should be on the call with, on the podcast with, over me, that are here, that are all within a mile to 3 miles away.
Way
And I
bigger
remember
fish
Kid
than
Kelly
Kid
in the
Kelly. I don't know
radios.
about that. You were the
Oh,
number
yeah.
one. You were the number 1 night jock in New York for how many years? Yeah.
He's shy. Look at him.
By the way, we didn't even say he's a Hall of Famer because he is. He's in the Radio Hall of
I
Fame.
remember that.
Yeah.
Big ceremony.
I was there. It's a great night.
Plus they give you a new car too. Didn't they give you a car with that?
a car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think they started doing that the next year. after
No,
you.
I think what happened was after they awarded me the award, they're like, okay, that'll be 75.60. I'm like, how much is that? Oh no, we made a mistake. 99.50. No,
So,
I'm
come
kidding.
on.
We didn't have to
Go
pay for
back.
the awards. We
So
didn't
go
have to
back
pay
and
for
tell
the
me how
awards.
you started, kid. Come on. You're
All right,
historic.
listen. I'm a very
College.
lucky. I'm a very lucky person. I'll do my best to summarize my wacky life / career. When I was 7 years old, I was asked, What do you want to do? I want to be a DJ. When I was 12, what do you want to do? I want to be a DJ. When I was 15, what do you want to do? I want to be a DJ. Yeah, no, maybe not. That's a good dream you had, but you want to go and take these tests for these city positions.
Yep.
Fireman, policeman.
Yep.
I got called to be a New York City fireman, turned it down 3 times. I got called to be a New York City cop 3 times, turned them down.
Wow.
Transit cop. Not a transit cop, sorry, a token. Back then, the coins, you would slide them before the electronic stuff.
Right.
You know, I get called for that 3 times. Something else I got called for. And each time I said, no, please put me back on the bottom of the list. You can do it 3 times then in the state of New York. I did those city jobs 3 times, turned down between $18,000 and $26,000. Back when I first started, when I was being paid minimum wage, that was like 18,000, 26,000. That was like, I couldn't even dream of that much money when I was, I went to high school barely. I graduated with a 66 average because my dad promised me a car, and the guidance counselor also happened to be my homeroom teacher and my English teacher. And, I would just sit in the class, not really any of the classes, not caring. I just wanted to get through school so I can get out and go be a DJ. Mrs. June Allison, tried to look her up on Facebook, can't find her. Wanted to thank her. She said to me, that paper that you wrote about what you want to do when you grow up, I didn't know that. I can help you do that. I was like, how? She's like, I know this place that has a 10-watt radio station. Yeah, 10 watts, plus it's probably in the luncheonette. Hang on, no. Like it would go to the lunchroom over a wire. So it's up. And she's like, no, it's 10 watts on FM. And it's Kingsborough Community College. Come to summer school, pass the whatever test I had to pass, and I'll graduate you, and I'll call over and recommend you. My dad promised me a car. This was my recommendation to a 10-watt radio station. I passed with a 66. I did the least I had to do to get the grade so I can go to this 10-watt school. From there, I was reading a trade publication, which I had wound up working for, ironically, years later, and it said positions sought. And at the time, the radio station that I was now with was not considered a class. It was considered a hobby. Yeah, that's how little people thought of radio then even. I had to take a class in college. This person was also my homeroom teacher, if you want to, whoever you would report to, the person between all those classes. And he was also the broadcast curriculum teacher for TV. TV was a course, but not radio. So I had to take the TV course to be in radio, so I took the course. He would wander into the radio station occasionally, look around, see what was going on, and leave. I was reading this industry publication as he walked in, and I said, "Excuse me, Professor, what does positions sought mean?" "Oh, these people want to hire people." Oh, okay, great. What does T and R stand for? He said then, before MP3s and CDs and all this stuff, tape and resume. I said, tape and resume? And he said, yeah. I said, not D and R? And he said, what's that? I said, degree and resume? Not embellishing. This was in the 80s. And the guy dressed like he was still in the 60s, like on the set of the TV show Laugh-In, which you can watch on Crackle these days. Have a whole channel. And he had like pre-Flavor Flav, he used to wear a clock around his neck. So he had a turtleneck that was always like these interesting colors, like orange or yellow or sage, all these weird colors, chalk. And he had his little clock and he had his thing, and he had a tab, and he had those. He used to smoke those really weird long female cigarettes called Moore, Moore. They were brown and long, and he was like, and I say, not D and R. spits it out all over the like projectiles it across the room, not embellishing one bit. And he goes, ha ha ha, DNR. And this is the guy running the broadcast curriculum. You don't need a degree to be successful in radio. And at that point, I'm like Ren and Stimpy. I'm like, what? I'm like, he goes, no. And he starts listing off names with excessive salaries of people that were just in New York. They're like, no, this one makes blah, 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 hundreds of thousands. And this one makes blah, 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 hundreds of thousands. I'm like, no degree? No.
Sign me up.
That day, I stopped all classes at college except the radio station. And I would religiously read the trade publications for the positions sought. And I would run my college tape out. And I would cater it to whatever the station was. I wanted to be in top 40. So I would find the most up-tempo songs and turn around and hit. I'd had it on play and record. I would let the pause button go for my talk between it's called a break. At least it was. I would pause it, take the tape out, and mail it. And I got a call from a place in Willimantic, Connecticut. And I took the job for $160 a week. Before taxes, came out to be $120 a week. However, the company that I went to work for minimum wage was not reputable, and they couldn't afford their bills. So basically, I would be living on $120 a month.
Oh boy.
So, and I, by the way, would do it all over again. It was challenging, but it was fun, and it literally, if you have to figure out how to live, how to eat,
Right.
you know, when you get to a radio station and the check doesn't bounce,
That's a good day.
you know, and you can actually eat more than once a day, and you don't have to eat chicken wings from then Kentucky Fried Chicken, now KFC. The local place on Main Street used to get rid of their chicken wings. There was some legal issue or something, some health issue, where they couldn't resell chicken wings. So whatever the number of chicken wings they would cook up that day, if they were left over, they would sell them all to you for 99 cents. You can get 6 or 66, and it would be 99 cents. So I would hover out by that Kentucky Fried Chicken whenever my wing stash would fall short, and I would pray. Like I'd go in there at like, what time are you closing? Oh, you're closing at 9? I'd be like the next day at like 7:30, stalking out who's getting wings and stuff, wondering how many wings were there.
Hey, you don't need that many.
I know. And then I would keep them in my trunk of my car that I bought for $200 that hardly started, and it was, you know, the carburetor caught fire, the wrong wheel rim was on there. You know, I'd be risking my life driving it, but it got me to where I needed to be for my first radio job. And 4.5 years later, through the luck, the people who recommended me, if you believe in it, you know, a guardian angel from the heavens. I do, because I don't know how these opportunities fell in my lap, but they did. And from there, I was just thought to myself, well, how did I get here? And what's the next step? So I'm not complacent. I was always self-motivated and self-driven for this and only this. If I wasn't doing this, or if I didn't do this, but did this for the last few decades, more than a few, I don't know what I would have done. I had no reason to get out of bed. That's what I call the blessing and my curse. And I think a lot of people in their areas of expertise, if they're around and you know of them more than, 5 months or 5 weeks or 5 years even, most people in any industry, if they're not self-driven and self-motivated, they either fail upward and run the company really poorly,
And then they ruin it. Yeah.
and then they're out of a job because everybody gets fired, or or the other option. So
Well, what it boils down to is you had no plan B.
never had a plan B, and I turned down the reluctant plan Bs that I was forced to take when I was in
And
10th
by the
grade.
way, By the way, knowing as I do how into fitness you are, you should have just taken the fireman's test for the physical endurance of it, because my cousin did it a couple times just to see he could do it.
Took it.
Oh, you did?
Passed.
Okay.
You have to pass. I had to. You had to take the written test, then you had to take the physical, um, before they can consider calling you. They wouldn't call you and then fail. At least that's the way it was back then. I had to take both of them, so I passed.
I heard it was a pretty tough test
Yeah.
physically.
Um, I was lucky. I must have been. I don't know. I was not a day older than 20. Um, so I was probably in pretty good shape back then.
Yeah.
But thanks.
No, I
Maybe
just heard it's a pretty demanding test, so you know you're in good shape if you can pass it.
Well, thank you. I did back then, and was called and said no, thank you 3 times. I think was the max back then. I got lucky getting the first big break in New York, and after when I got to New York, I'm thinking, what's my next step? My next step is to do a syndicated show, because when I lose this job, and I thought I would lose it within 1 to 2 years, because everybody wanted to work there. I didn't even know how I got the job. I mean, I thought, I didn't tell my family I was auditioning, because I had been on there as a part-timer once before under a different name and failed. Wasn't ready for it. I choked. That's what she said. Can you say that then?
It wasn't it Shadow Stevens that told you to go off and get a little better?
Yeah, and to his credit, he was as mentorsome as someone could be under the intense pressure that he was likely under as the afternoon person. But nobody knew this. Well, maybe a lot you, Jim, and maybe you, Mark, knew it. But he was also the operations manager. It's really challenging to be an OM
Yeah.
and an on-air person at the same time. You really have to have one of those, or teach yourself how to be mathematical and then blink and then go be creative.
Hmm.
And it's challenging. But anyway, yeah, he gave me my first break. That's a whole other story.
The story I want you to tell Mark and everybody, because I never laughed so hard, it's the one you told me when you're working at Z100, they're sending you out, you kept the car out to do some Christmas shopping, and then Scott Shannon had something to say. That's a good story.
Well, somehow I'm at the number one radio station in the number one city. And somehow I'm now the new night jock. And it's the holiday season. I'm working, I don't know, 145 hours, 150 hours a week. Only had a 7-hour show. And it was a show, not a shift, because you were encouraged to put on a performance. And we were coddled. So back to Jim's saying the story, share the story. Well, the story is I was working a lot of hours, and in between being on the air, you'd be shuttled about via limousine, via a car. They would shuttle you about for local appearances. Could be a car, it could be like an auto dealer. It could be a club. Certainly was a lot of clubs. It could be a clothing store. It could be anything, and you would go get your appearance fee, and you'd stay there between 1 to 3 hours. Jim's story is very simple. I'm there during the day at an off hour, and Scott, who's also on the air in the morning, was also the program director, and he was there all day, because the program director's job is to be there all day. So he would get there when he got there. I'm guessing somewhere between 5 and 6, and then there were some days he'd be there 5, 6 at night. So I'm out. I did a show. I did an appearance. Did a show. Did an appearance. Came back. Did an appearance. And because it was the holiday season, I kept the car person out a little bit longer, and I went shopping with them at a mall. Can you take me to this mall in between these 2 appearances? And I would do that, and I found enough stuff for my family. I had the car for extra 5 or 6 extra hours. So I'm in there, I'm in the hallway, and just, hey, about the invoice for your car, for your for your last weekend. I go, oh yeah, thanks for bringing it up. I meant to tell you that I had the car out, and I need to you need to bill me for these 6 or 8 hours. The response from the admin office: oh no. That's not why that's not why I'm that's not why I'm asking you. I'm asking you because you were supposed to have a stretch limo, but you had a town car. Did you change it? I'm sorry? Did I change stretch to town? No, of course not. I just want to let you know that I had the car for 8 hours. So I'm guessing that's whatever, $100 an hour. I think I owe you like $700 or $800. No, that's not it. Hang on. And Scott just happens to be walking by at this time, and she had the answer for him, and it just happened to have the answer in front of me. I just happened to be there. No, it's not. It was a town car, not a stretch. And just at that point, my the person who dispatched me for these things, or was a co-signer for this dispatchment, gets spun around in the hallway. Did you send him out in a town car? Sorry? Did you send him out in the town car? Yeah. Whatever the response was. And I'm just looking at the ping pong match going, what happened? I don't know what's going on. From now on, I said it before and I say it again. All Z100 DJs get stretch limos, not town cars, stretch limos. As a matter of fact, they also get 5 fresh Z100 bills to give away at their discretion. And they each get a box of Hot Rockin' Flame Throwing Z shirts. Those were station T-shirts. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't mean to start this, but wow, this is heaven. I'm like, hang on a second. You want me to have a box of T-shirts in my car, have $500 bills to give away at my discretion? Oh, and by the way, just bring back their first name, their last name, and their social security number. Okay.
Yeah.
And I might have said maybe the second round was address, but it was like it was like I had worked at some really bad radio stations. I had worked at bad radio stations, and somehow we made them good. I had worked at good radio stations that had sadly become bad. I had never walked into a situation like, hey, man, all of these people are to be treated pristine. There's no such thing. They get stretch limos. And,
Nice.
and it was like the most fascinating time in radio, which, by the way, it looks like you, Mark, you had a fascinating time in the record industry. The last time I was in an office with all gold records like that, I was at one of PD's freak out parties.
We don't talk about that.
You don't
Actually-
admit that.
Actually,
No,
it's
I
the
was
same.
never invited.
It's the same
I was,
old
but I
record.
never
I
went.
just reproduced it 5 times. That's all. I used to be big, kid. I told you, big. I tell you.
Big baby.
And I think I have your Air Supply one up there that you like so much to hear.
Air Supply, I got to say, I didn't appreciate them back then. I do now. And you've got way better stories than my stretch limo story regarding Air Supply, but I'm going to leave that to you, Mark Rizzo.
Well, we're trying to get our boy Russell on the podcast. 'Cause
Russell Hitchcock.
He's great. And they're out there. The one thing Air Supply used to tell me that Russell used to say is they pay, we play. And they're still touring everywhere. God
Quick
bless
trivia
them.
question. You guys know who the first ever show they opened up in Australia for? Who'd they open up for?
Rod Stewart, no?
No.
No, because I
Would it be?
know.
Can I
Take
Can
a
I get
guess.
what do they call it in radio again? They call it where you help the respondent. Where you help the what's it called again?
Phone a friend?
Aided recall, or phone a friend.
Phone a friend.
Was it another Australian band?
It was
Was it Olivia Neutron Bomb?
completely different from Air Supply sound. Opposite end of the spectrum.
Okay, so it's got to be a rock band. Was it AC/DC?
Yes.
I just took a
Wow.
lucky guess. Who else is from Australia?
Look
that
at
we know
Jim
of?
knowing trivia. that I don't even know.
AC/DC.
I think I read that somewhere, but I know that they've been.
Can you imagine that show?
That was the opening act?
I'm all out of love. Hell's bells.
Yeah. Lock up your doors. Lock up your wife.
That's funny. But kid, back up for a minute. How'd you come up with the name Kid Kelly? I know it's got the perfect KK
well,
alliteration and stuff, but
I put a bunch of names on a piece of paper because, hey man, look at that window. My name in Buffalo was Kid Crockett. And not because I was like an American coonskin wearing cap kind of a fella, but at the time, here's a little insight as to how old I really should be called Adult Kelly for a bunch of reasons. First of all, I get up to go to the bathroom a few times a night.
P Kelly, that's called.
Second of all, just
Instead
fact.
of R Kelly.
Second of all, I am cold. Second of all, I am old and cold. I'm in Florida right now and it's 70 and I'm freezing.
I know. I feel it too.
That's
Which
interesting.
TV show am I imitating right now?
Which TV show?
He's
Yeah,
doing
is my whole
trivia, I
face
don't know.
showing, or is it just my
No, I
eyes?
see your whole face.
Oh,
You
sorry.
got your glasses going.
about
We
now?
see you, Lanai. We see you,
Oh.
Paul.
What about now?
Okay. What is he imitating?
I have
I
no.
don't know.
Can you just see my eyes?
Yeah, I can see your eyes.
We
Just
see your
my
whole
eyes.
face. We see
No,
your
just
I don't
your
see the
eyes.
whole
No, I
face.
see your whole
Your eyes.
face.
We see
all right.
everything.
Anyway, I was trying to. In my feed, I just see my eyes over the fence. I thought it was an episode of that '80s show.
Oh,
Oh yeah, that show. It's pretty.
Home
funny.
Improvement.
Right.
yeah. So
I am an '80s guy, you know.
it's two guys and a mic. Jim Ryan with Mark Rizzo. Our special guest is Kid Kelly. Please like, subscribe. We are on YouTube. We are on Spotify. We are on Pandora. We are on
Very
Apple
big.
Podcast. We're
Big.
everywhere. So like and subscribe and hit the notification button so you get alerted when new episodes go live. I wanted to ask Kid what he thinks with the new administration. Will the FCC be better for broadcasters or listeners or not?
I saw your questions. I didn't. I just glanced at them because I want to answer honestly and sincerely. I never want to see questions in advance because I want to answer sincerely and honestly. Otherwise, I'm just somebody else with hot air. I did glance at that. I didn't look at the entire thing. I think the first thing the current administration has identified correctly and immediately, by the way, is the flaws in CBS, NBC, ABC, because they are still, as many of you might have seen, OTA, over the air. Their primary interest is serving the public over the air. Now, they're also on cable and stuff now as well, but they're not some of the other places that are just on cable. Cable is cable. It's not air. The people, the public, own the airwaves. That's the way things were set up. So when ABC is cutting out and manufacturing, and CBS, the most specific one, I think the current administration is suing all, but I think they're suing CBS the biggest. And technically, if he wanted to, he could yank their license.
Right.
That's an epic fail. That is treasonous what they did. What do I know? I'm not a lawyer. I'm a DJ, head DJ, pretend program director. Never really cared about the title or the stripe. Just wanted to do the job. And I was lucky that I was able to do the job a lot of places. It always starts well, usually doesn't end well, but that's the way things are. But I think that it's going to go really well because the public needs, the right information, regardless of who or what your political affiliation is. Not my place, not going to discuss mine. This is, I'm not qualified to make these statements, but I will say that I was very, very well read regarding the FCC because when Jim and I started in radio, Rizzo, Mark, I don't know if you were ever in radio before you were in music records, but that license meant something. If you inadvertently, they call it a fleeting expletive now, and I see it a lot on TV now. It's not fleeting. People say it. Some of the 7 words that you're not supposed to say. Somebody needs to be monitoring that, not only
Yeah.
for the potential moral stuff of it, which again I'm not qualified to speak of. So there's that, but there's also the fact that those words are technically illegal over the air. changing statements to improve the response of a political person is perhaps the most, again, it probably is, but again, I'm not qualified in this area enough to speak of it. So what I think isn't necessarily the truth, but that is probably one of the most communistically treasonous things that one can do.
Sure.
Yeah. And it's a violation of the public trust in what they get,
1000% now, because now the public is like, so the person that was the administration that was potentially positioned as the liar was actually telling the truth the entire time while these people were cold stone lying to us now, because there's no way you can't dispute the data, whether you like the people in place now. The data is the data.
Right.
And it's, some of the stuff is,
pretty
shocking.
egregious.
So I think, just for the, again, not aligning myself with a political party, just simply saying that, if you can't trust American Broadcasting Company
Who can you trust?
to tell you the truth, then what's going on? So I think it's going to go way better for radio. Also, there should be rules in place that a political party should not own any radio station groups or be affiliated or be able to influence.
Right.
And that'll probably be looked at as well, whether it's publicly shared. This administration seems to want to share everything, and much in line, shows up, they answer questions, they share what's going on. It's probably going to be very helpful to the people, so they'll know the truth.
So another
Ideally,
question,
that would be good. Yeah.
another question I wanted to go to, kid, because you'd be good, just to come up with like really two quick bullet points. And there's no quick answer to this, but radio is having a lot of trouble and has for a while attracting younger listeners. Let's face it, kids don't use the radio like we did when we were growing up. Is there a way for broadcasters to get them back? And what do you think two key things for an over-the-air terrestrial radio station need in order to be successful and win?
Yeah, the executive teams and the ivory towers need to put their egos back where they belong, and let the people who have been on the field do what they do, period. And if the people who they put in place or the HR department puts in place are pure and know what they're doing and will not put any orientations in the way of the message. So here's a great example. The answer is 1000% yes, but there needs to be not with the current three companies that own 90% of the stations,
Right.
not with the satellite company quietly following along. What these companies pay their quote talent is atrocious, in my opinion. It starts with serving the community. And a great example of that is, FM is dead, but it's self-destructed itself, just like AM did. If you look at WABC in New York, you have somebody there who bought a radio station who had no idea how to run radio. But what did he know? He knew grocery stores. Grocery stores, and I don't know anything except what I hear, and I've heard, over the decades, that grocery stores make a very small profit margin.
Right. This is a small profit line.
So radio stations make a small profit line, but it's way bigger than grocery stores.
Right.
So I believe this gentleman hired the right people, listened to them, and was unapologetically fearless regarding what he was going to do with the radio station. Okay, well, again, not being political, it's well known that the city and the state is a Democratic state. He's got a Republican station on, if you will, most of the day. Now, then he hires legendary people Cousin Brucey. He hired Cousin Brucey to come and
Mhm.
do Saturday nights and play music, and not um not a watered down Cousin Brucey. Cousin Brucey that people remember. And if it's toned down, it's because he's toned himself down a bit, not because he was told, well, just don't do ee and stuff like that. Just go on and he wasn't given any direction other than be Cousin Brucey.
Right. Right.
And guess what Cousin Brucey did?
Be
He
who
won.
he is. Yeah.
And he won because he's got he does what he does, and he's appreciated and respected for what he's done in the past and what he's doing now. So and an inspiration for me for sure. There's very few people that are still doing it that people in radio can kind of look at and go, this person is literally. I think I've seen it all. No, Cousin Brucey's seen it all. Everything. I think he might have even seen like the old records on 78 that would, I think they were called acetates, where you would throw them on the ground and they would shatter.
Probably. He also
I hope-
worked at a time. He also worked at a time where he didn't have to run his own board. He had an engineer in there doing it.
Yeah, yeah. But still, that's what it was back then because they needed it back then. Now they don't. But the point is, anybody can have anything that's successful if the content is unique. I like to lead with unapologetically outstanding. Has been a phrase I've used my entire career. I want everything that I'm attached to be unapologetically outstanding. You might not like it, you might love it, but you will notice it. And that's half of the game right there. So I do believe that any medium that's doesn't have content on it now. Who's to say that Bluetooth won't have some space and they'll have shows streaming? Nobody knows anything.
Right.
So I believe that as long as it's unique, unapologetically outstanding, authentic, fearless, not group thinkish. You can have people weigh in and have lots of fresh ideas coming in. Want those? Always wanted those. I've taken ideas from interns and I've pushed away ideas from people above me because the people above me weren't in the field. I lived through. I worked at 40 radio stations. I lost so many. I don't know how many I've worked at. And most of them were bad. And I don't regret working at those bad radio stations because if you get to example, when I got to then the number one station in town in New York, it was set up in such a way where it was almost fail proof. For the first time ever, you were standing up and you were looking at the buttons that you needed to press and the songs you needed to play at eye level around you, like in a half circle. Like if anybody remembers the Jetsons cartoon, like that circle desk, you would kind of sit in it.
Yeah.
And it had remote switches, which are songs which would be like buttons that you didn't have to reach out to press. You just had to, move. What do you say? Like 6 to 12 inches at most, Jim?
Yeah.
To press a button underneath the song. So, when I
And you
first
know why?
started, I was playing songs without remote switches and with 2 turntables as opposed to 5 tape machines. The songs were played off of tape before they were on CDs back then 5 CD machines. So, you'd have to figure out, hit the button, jump ahead. You'd have to spin the thing back 2.5 rotations, count in your head like 1, 2, and you'd have to talk on the mic, jump back for a second, hit the button, jump back into the microphone again, and make it all seamless. If you can do that, the worst possible scenario, when you get to a place that's actually laid out well, if you can learn how to drive a diesel, flat, 4-cylinder lawnmower, you can certainly, when you get to a super fancy car that basically drives itself, you can excel in that.
Well, I'll tell you why. In my opinion, that worked because we had the same setup because of the person's involvement at Y100 in Philadelphia. Scott had an engineer that listened to him about how to set up that studio for the DJ, not for engineers like to go in there and they'll put things just in weird places, like not user friendly, because they want to set it up or make it look good. But Scott made it up because you or everybody else were the guys working on that stuff every day.
Until I got to that station, I needed a chiropractor. And Jim, you know the reason why, and Mark, you might know the reason why. Because in the infinite wisdom, until a person who, again, was a player on the field first before they became a coach and a leader, most people in radio did this most of the time. I'm looking straight, right? I'm looking at my body, my torso is straight. What am I doing?
Right.
I'm pressing the next button for the next song, because in their infinite wisdom, the microphones were here, but the players were someplace else. And you have to go like this all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Or right. Constantly. Like, and you know, when you're working at night, and especially at night, you know, or even afternoons, or even like some of the, you know, adult pace, you know, the midday, like I was like this all night.
Yeah.
You know, with those clunky Cost Pro 4 double A's.
Those are some heavy ass headphones, man.
They were like a few pounds, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
They felt like them.
They were good though. Great headphones.
They locked everything out, except when the they used to be filled with oil, and then when the pads around your ears used to be filled with oil, and then they would pop. In the late '80s, early '90s, they were still with oil. If they popped on the air, you'd have greasy hair for the rest of the. You couldn't go out after your show unless you went and washed your hair. Then they started filling them with air.
It's been a great day here with Kid Kelly. It's two guys and a mic. Wanted to get to, because we've wanted you on for a while. I know you got something you want to talk about and promote what you're doing these days or what you're going to be doing.
What are you doing these days, Kid Kelly?
That's a good question, Mark. Well, first of all, before I break any major news, how many people are watching, listening?
We have 15,432 last time we looked.
That's pretty amazing.
No, I'm making that up. I think on a good day we have about 15. I think we have 15 or 16.
That's fair. I figured well, that's about 15 or 16 more than I have. So more power to you. This is a great place.
No, but I think the one with Johnny Resnick, our one with the lead singer of the Goo Goo Dolls, I think we have 5,000 on that one. And Rick Springfield's coming up to 3.
Okay, then. I tease a lot. I just, you know, for fun, because what the audience might not know is that all three of us go back 20 years. So I'm sometimes making inside jokes that are like, what? And I shouldn't do that. I'm saying dumb things that aren't necessarily true. All the radio shit is true. Fleeting expletive, that was a real one.
So now we're going to get fined because of that.
But that was a real one. Some people just like, SHIT, because they can. What was the question again? Because I rattled.
It was about what you're going to be doing now.
What are you doing now?
What are you going on?
Yeah. Thank you for that. I don't know how I got off on this tangent, Jim. Could you help me? Rein me back in, bro. Rizzo, come on.
You back in. Let's go.
And Def Leppard. You know, you've seen things. You've heard things. Rein me in.
Well, it's funny because we had a lot of problems with Air Supply lyrics as well. We had to clean a lot of those up as well.
You were like the fixer, and you hired Jim Ryan to be your subcontractor to fix as well. You're
wish.
Like Ray Donovan, only you're like Mark Rizzo.
We had to fix a lot of stuff. So what are you doing now, kid? Come on. What are you doing? Spill the beans.
You know what? I'm going to do my ego projects and pretty much take over a few formats that a few companies right now are doing really a poor job of executing. One of the podcasts I'm going to be doing when I get around to it.
Can I be a guest on it?
Totally.
I'll tell you stories.
Sure. I'm going to go over all of the radio stations and critique them on air.
Nice.
That's what I'm going to do.
All
Good
right.
for you.
Good bit, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to be doing. I
got to be a part of that.
There's a sheet that 2 or 3 other really brilliant folks collaborated with. We all collaborated, and then somebody else uses it as if. Anyway, there were 3 or 4 brilliant folks, and I wish I could mention their names because they deserve to hear it. They were brilliant, and we all collaborated on this cheat sheet, if you will, a guide for radio stations and DJs, the checklist. So I'm going to be using that checklist on a bunch of radio stations. I don't feel bad using it because I helped create it. It's got refined a lot over the years, but the initial three we equally weighed in and then presented and said, "Here you go. Why don't you use this?" Anyway, I'm also going to be launching Backtracks Radio. I've never had a digital presence, and I've always had what they call a carve out due to an excellent agent representative, and I just never got around to it. But at some point, Backtracks itself, I think I'm just going to give it to radio stations. They don't have the inventory to sustain it.
Right.
It's just, FM has killed itself. So if they want it, I'll just give it to them. But I'm going to move that onto a full-time radio channel. And that's what I'm going to be doing. And the app will be available soon. And then I'll come back for another podcast and we can promote the app. And you could do funny little things behind the scenes for me. Get 15 or 30 or whatever, how many. I'm just simply saying, whoever the audience is, I'm more than happy to say, please promote, please push this out for me. So when I get to that phase, that's what I'm going to do. But for the first time ever, Backtracks will have its own app. And there'll be other stuff around that I'm excited about. But I don't want to just spit that out. The most important part of this for a national purpose is finally there'll be a Backtracks app that'll be playing the current shows and all the shows on demand.
That's cool.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's cool.
It's a really good app, and once it's all put together, I'll invite myself back if that's okay.
Yeah.
And then I'll mention all the cool people behind the scenes who helped put it together.
That's awesome.
Because they deserve the spotlight way more than I do.
Nice.
Because they're making it happen.
That's
You're
very
making
cool.
it happen. It's your talent. It's your idea. It's all the stuff you've done.
I got very lucky a long time ago. I've been very, very now. The harder your work, as you both know, the luckier we get. But that said, just because you worked hard and feel you deserve it doesn't mean you're going to get it.
Nope.
No, it's true. I mean, obviously, I speak to a lot of radio people. I've done it for a long time, and it's sad from where I sit because I know there are creative people out there, people that would want to do maybe a third of what you've been able to do on the air and be creative, but their hands have been slapped and they're told in some ways that no, their show's not important. The radio part of it, you have to drive people to the website. We got to get eyes on the, all the advertisements that they run on the websites. And that seems to be more important than the actual broadcast. And
Absolutely.
these guys are so scared of losing their jobs. Some of them are older and they're afraid. And what brought them to the business and the joy and, the creativity. And I mean, I've seen stuff that you didn't see with it was mind boggling how you coordinated all that stuff. Now it's like these guys it's sad. A lot of their soul ambition is gone and they're just doing it because if they lose their job, they'll be selling cars or, God knows what. And it's a shame because these are creative, talented people who have been harnessed now for the bottom line, which is so stupid.
Well, you are spot on, Jim. You're spot on as well. I self-impose and consider myself to be unhireable because I won't change my values not because I'm an egomaniac, but because I'm pretty confident based on the last several decades I've been doing this and all of the fails that I've had doing what you're asking me to do. It's not going to work. Please listen. This is not me being a problem. If it would work, I'd be like, that's a great idea. And I have no problem saying that's a great idea. Thank you. And now let me tell everybody what a great idea that you've given me. I've never been one to, I've always felt that, if you're building something, you have to be responsible. The buck stops with me. If it's broken, if somebody messed up, they didn't mess up. I messed up because I didn't give them the right direction, nor did I oversee them properly, depending upon how they like to work. Some people like to check in every day or every hour. Some people don't want to check in more than once a week. And some people, when you check in with them, it doesn't necessarily have to be about the job. It has to be about how's your life at home, because you can't get the most out of people if you don't know who they are. And that's not like to manipulate them. That's to truly be a partner with them. My philosophy has always been the buck stops with me. If something goes wrong, it's my fault. And I hope that I've lived by that. And I've hoped I've never disappointed. I don't believe but who knows? Maybe I had a bad day or a bad hour. But nobody will do that. Nobody will say, like you just both said, or Mark, you articulated a bit more. Nobody will do that, and that's what's missing. And
It's sad.
without that element, it's not about. It's about the fact that there are people like you guys, like me, like a lot of other people, a lot of women as well, that they don't want to work in corporate America anymore for these reasons. Not only is it restrictive and chaotic, and not only do you sadly now get underpaid, but you're also, you know what? Don't mistreat your people, because your people. I used to deal with this a lot at my last job. I don't want to call them out, but I used to hear all the time, well, where else are they going to go? And I finally said, listen, stop saying that in front of me, because I feel like I want to punch you in the face, because the answer is not here. That's where they're going to go. Do you think that they're not going to get upset and just leave radio in general? Where else are they going to go? They have infinite choices. They might not have radio choices, but you know what? Once you cut a person down to the point where you're affecting their personality and you're making them feel worthless, they'll either be really poor employees because they'll be not motivated and not really do much, failing upward, or they'll leave and do something else, and you will have created a gaping void because you are a poor manager and don't recognize the value of this person.
Of people, yeah.
Period.
Like the day I was called serviceable and Kate Goat said, go have a drink and just calm down.
Serviceable.
Because that was not a good choice of words.
No.
Idiots.
There are many other ways to say that, and I can't help but think that that was a covert, narcissistic thing to say. That's what you say to somebody that's been working for a company that amount of time. Serviceable? How about?
Yeah.
I stopped myself from saying it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to, that's not, there are way better ways to motivate people. That was not about motivation.
No, they don't care. There's no motivation. It's them
That was
showing
hurtful.
you.
That was
that's
hurtful. And in
them
my
showing you who
opinion-
they are, that they're the boss.
Yeah,
We control
showing you,
you.
in my opinion, the person who said that deserves a punch in the face as a public service, because the punch in the face will set them straight. The next person who's just going to be having a bad day and happen to be carrying a gun is just going to shoot them.
Yeah. It's horrible.
They're just going to kill. They're not going to blink. They're just going to wham and just destroy them.
Go off. Yeah.
So pop off, I think, is a good way to put it. Or get energized, as they say in corporate America. You're
Yes.
energized. Yeah,
All
I
right,
was
well, listen.
energized because I care. So yeah, you can treat people poorly for so long before they give up and become poor employees and stay, or just leave a gaping hole. There are great, The Last Dance. Jim will tell you, I know nothing about sports. The Last Dance is a great analogy regarding radio, where, Michael Jordan, top of his game with the rest of the team, were told, unless I misread the little mini series, they were told before the series started that this is the last season. You're number one, but you're all gone. Something like that.
Right.
Then Michael Jordan had to play through that. Think about
That's
it.
nice. Yeah.
There's much better ways of presenting information.
We're breaking up the team no matter what happens.
Exactly.
Yeah, congratulations. You've been number one 7 seasons in a row. You're not going to Disney World. You're going to the unemployment line. There's Aaron Rodgers, Enigma. Punch in the face watching that. Where I'm paraphrasing, and again, I don't know much about sports, but I do know leaders in their category, as best I can. And what he said in his documentary was, to get into the NFL, you've got to be really good. To stay more than average stay, which most people don't know, I'm guessing 80, 90% of the players, they only know the superstars and the people that work hard. to have more than an average career, you've got to have talent and be consistent. If you want to have real staying power, and I'm paraphrasing him, you got to be better than anyone else.
Yeah.
That's
Because
a
the average
pretty-
life of a pro football player is 4 or 5 years. That's
right.
it.
And he's been at it 3 decades or more.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what he said was, in order to do that, you've got to be better than anyone else. That was not a statement of bravado. That's not the takeaway. My takeaway was, so you have to change the way you think to do it.
True.
Punch in the face.
Yep. Yep.
So guess what the other companies are doing right now? They all preach they want greatness, and they all preach they're going to think differently.
But they
They're
don't.
not thinking. They're not.
Nobody does.
That's correct. The guy who is the guy who has an AM station, back to Jim's point, an AM station in arguably the most competitive radio city in the world, New York. He's got, I think that station is top 5.
Wow.
It's an AM station
Right.
that hasn't seen top 5 since 1970.
Oh, okay.
Well, back when it was a top 40.
Yeah, but it flipped in 1982, but it flipped a sad goodbye because, it got decimated by a disco station. Didn't even get dismantled by a top 40 station. WABC, for those watching or listening, was a old top 40 station with a very, very tight playlist because they had a lot of what they call cumulative listeners, a rotating door. You just came in, you heard your hit record, I just left, somebody else just came in. When you have a lot of people listening, when you have millions and millions and millions and millions of people listening, you can't forecast. You have a better way to do it now with the technology, but even now it's a sloppy guess with a moving target. So they had to play their songs a lot.
One of the greatest afternoon DJs ever who influenced me to want to be in radio, Dan Ingram.
And even he got muzzled towards the end.
Yeah.
You'd walk in to some of these stations. I remember walking into one, and I used to call it Old McDonald had a consultant, because I used to walk past, one consultant would say, "Heard your show last night. Better." They'd all stand in between because they were all reporting to the corner office. The next one would walk in and go, when you stop the song in mid-play, finish your thought, and hit the button again, and it was seamless. It was the best thing I've ever heard. Oh my God. And would bow to me. The next person I'd walk past, they'd give me a look of indifference. The next person I'd walk past, they'd go, I think you're inconsistent. The next person I'd walk past, they'd go, you're the most consistent disc jockey I've ever heard. And I just finally said, tune everybody out and just go.
Do you think?
A couple episodes ago, we had Spider Harrison on, and Spider was talking about his time in New York, where Scott would call in the middle of the night, and he was just fishing. He'd be fishing like, "What are you doing in my radio station?" Right? So Spider learned to say, "Making it sound good, Scott, making it sound good," because he had Spanky came on after him, he said, and Spanky picked up the phone and Scott said the same thing, and Spanky, "Oh, you mean that dead air?" And Spider's going, he's not even listening. Don't tell him that. So
That's funny.
Yeah, Super Shen. I learned that secret from him, where the old trick is you have back then, your FM radio in your bathroom, and you have it connected to the switch. So when you flip the switch on, the radio plays. So if you get up like for a 2:00 bathroom break, or 3:00 in the morning, you flip it on, and then you call the overnight host. And that was a really good break, man. I loved it. And of course, you put your "I'm wide awake" voice on.
Right.
Which you're really
That's funny.
So, according to Matt Allen, another immense talent, Scott had a fearless ear, I think, for hiring outstanding talents, and Matt was one of them. He was in his early 20s or something like that. Apparently, Spider Harrison at the time was the jammer.
Yeah.
For folks who don't know,
He said that. Yeah, he told us that on the thing.
and for folks who don't know, who the jammer was, just the jammer alone was legend. I'm like, and I remember, Matt Allen told me that Jammer, Spider Harrison, was working, and Matt was flown in for his interview, and Shannon picked him up at the airport, and Jammer Spider was on during the day for the weekend show, or late at night, I don't know. And Matt gets in his car, and before they even speak, Jammer comes on the radio, and Scott just blasts the volume as loud as it can go in his super expensive car with the back deck and the windows like, and it's like, and according to Matt Allen, Shannon matter-of-factly just turns it down, looks at Matt, and goes, I don't know what the hell that guy just said, but he sure sounds damn good saying it. And I'm like, when I heard that story, it's like, that's the person I want to work for. And somehow it happened.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of good times with Steve in the mix as well, Steve Kingston. But that ended not so nicely, but again, it's repaired now.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, boys, listen, I love you both, but I got to go jump. I got a dog that has to go out.
Rizzo.
See, my dog's got to go out too.
Rizzo,
there you go.
Started. I got tons of stories.
I know. Well,
line up a fatty, and then the real stories come out.
We may have to do a mini series, the Kid Kelly mini series. But before I run and walk the dog before the sky opens, I will look you up when I come to West Palm again. And boy, will we have a good time. And speaking of announcements, if things go south, as I hear, I could be in line for the Pope job. So, I look good in a robe.
I think that works.
I look good with a hat.
Going to send up the white smoke.
There you go. Send up the white smoke. But that would be record label smoke, not Pope smoke. Very different smoke.
Yes.
Kid, you are a legend. You always were fair to everybody. I never heard a bad thing about you. And I know a lot of bad things about a lot of people. So I know Jim loves you. You always had his back. That's unheard of in this business. You've been loyal. You're talented. And it was my pleasure to know you, even though I didn't do top 40, just to pass your office and on my way to trying to get Jim to play a record. So there you go.
Well, that was a very, I mean this in the nicest way. That was quite a soliloquy. Thank you. I'm touched by that. Thank you very much.
It's true. I deal with the good, the bad, and the ugly, as I say, not only with people, but with product. And there's very few people that are stand-up people, and you're one of them. So there you go. I tried.
Thank you. I'm not sure if I'm perfect, but I tried, and I keep trying. So thank you for your kind words. Back at you, Mark, and back at you, Jim. Thank you.
I gotta go, or else I'll be cleaning up poop here. So I got
two guys and a mic.
Wait. That's just the dog poop. That's just you at your age, right?
Well, I clean up poop all day long.
Me too, by the way. I'm not just calling you out.
All right, thank you. I'm coming to see you. I'm going to come visit Palm Beach. I'm there.
My pleasure, and you're always welcome, both of you.